town. Yeah, it's a small town.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to another Burlingame is a Small Town podcast, sponsored by the Burlingame Historical Society. This is Mark Lucchese, also known as Mark at the Mic, and my guest today is Joseph Suarez. Joseph was born and raised in Burlingame, and is excited to be serving the only community that he calls home. Joseph is a local realtor and a problem solver. He loves the day-to-day challenges that the job brings as much as he loves being attentive to his clients' needs. When not working, Joseph likes to unwind by editing together content, hiking, and partaking in Bay Area cleanup projects. He is also a member of the Burlingame Lions Club. And now my conversation with Joseph Suarez. Joseph, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
So from here on out, I'm going to probably dump the Joseph and go with Joe or Joey, if that's okay with you.
That's much easier. I love the brevity.
Okay, yeah. So you grew up in Burlingame.
I did. I grew up right next to your old house down the street from you.
On 409 Howard. That's where I was,
Yeah, right. You were at 409 and I was at 401.
Yeah, but you weren't born yet because we moved in 88. When were you born?
97.
97.
So I missed the mark there by a little bit.
Yeah. So are you classified as a millennial or a Gen Z or what?
I'm right at the cutoff of it, but I really don't feel like I conform with, either of them. I believe I'm a millennial, but I think it's, or maybe it's 96 is the cutoff for millennial.
Yeah, I think I'm a millennial too. I don't go with the boomer stuff, okay?
And I can tell by the setup that we've got here and the shop that we're running.
Absolutely, man. All right. So what schools did you go to in Burlingame?
A lot. Most of them. I started off at Stepping Stones, which was kind of off of El Camino there on Laguna, I believe.
Was that like a daycare or a nursery or something?
Yeah, it was kind of like a preschool, nursery, kindergarten, starting little Montessori, right?
Yeah.
But then I went to Washington Elementary. I was on the waiting list, though, for St. Catherine's at that time, and everyone was trying to get into the parochial schools because of all the good reviews that they had heard and the pressure from the Catholic parents and whatnot, right? So when I finally got accepted like a week into me being at Washington, and then so did the quick transfer over there, was there for a little bit, transferred to St. Matthew's Catholic in San Mateo.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because they had an opening over there?
Because they had an opening over there, and my parents were hearing better things about St. Matthew's Catholic than they were hearing about St. Catherine. So we said, okay, we'll do that. We'll make that change. Then halfway through 7th grade, my parents decide, okay, well, I think we're going to try out the public school route here. I actually, what had happened, it's a little sad. I don't mean to damper the mood, but I had a best friend in 7th grade who had passed away. It was real tough when I was kind of, at that age, you're young and whatnot.
Passed away in 7th grade?
Yeah. I was, it was a weekend where we were supposed to hang out. We were supposed to go to a party, and he went to one of his dad's work sites, got into some sort of an ATV accident, and basically passed away in the airlift to the hospital.
Horrible.
Pretty heavy stuff, yeah. And it was tough to navigate when you're that young, right?
7th grade, is that 10 or 11 or 12?
Somewhere around there, just around there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was just kind of overwhelmed and felt like my parents especially felt like I needed a new scenery, something that didn't remind me of that, right? So that's when I transferred into BIS. It was like 7th and a half grade.
Yep.
8th grade, and then went to Burlingame High School after that.
Yeah.
And then to Harvard on the Hill.
Oh, you went to CSM after? Okay, we'll get to that in a minute.
This is so funny because I reference it as Harvard on the Hill all the time, but only the locals and the originals know about that.
Yeah, a lot of guys call it College of Sarah Men.
There we go.
Okay, but we'll leave that go for now. Okay, so you went to Burlingame High, right. As a youngster growing up in Burlingame, though, did you have favorite places that you like to go hang out with some of your buddies from BIS or BHS?
Of course.
Where were they? Tell us about some.
The typical spots, we were always down at Adeline Market after school every day.
Really?
Yeah. So when we were at BIS...
that's not far from there, huh?
Not far, no. So we would take, or at least I would take the bus, because I was on the bad side of the tracks over here.
Yeah.
To go to BIS when I was in middle school, right?
Yep.
And then at the end of school, a couple of my buddies lived over there in Easton Addition. So we would walk home from school, stop at Adeline Market, get some snacks, and then go home, right? Or to their houses.
Okay. And then how would you eventually get back back home? Just take the bus back home or what?
I would either skateboard back home on the side of El Camino, which my mother was not happy about. Or one of the parents would pick us up or drop us off kind of thing, right? Because that was pre-licenses.
Yeah. Did you guys ever go to Burlingame Avenue or anything like that?
Yeah. We would. I mean, not too often, to be honest with you. The older we got, the more, when we were able to like drive ourselves around, that's when we really started going to, a lot of the little parks and viewpoints here and whatnot, and hanging out here. Like we used to hang out at Crocker Lake all the time, over there in Hillsborough.
All the years I've been here, I've never seen Crocker Lake.
It's hard to see
in Hillsborough.
You got to go past this gate, and it's a no trespassing gate now. But
right, so people would hop the fence or something, or could you get in when you were younger?
Well, if you knew somebody that lived on like one of their lots that kind of was like parallel to it, all the neighbors kind of walked around it in like a little trail. So we had a bunch of friends that lived right there. Yeah. And then so we would say we were visiting our friends and then just go hang out at the lake for a little bit and skip some stones.
Is it still there today?
It is. I don't know how clean it is, and I think there's a reason why it's closed. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, it's still there today. There's a couple of little lakes actually over there in Hillsborough and Burlingame that are kind of like.
Did you ever hear of Spencer Lake?
That's another one. Yes. Yeah.
Same thing. I've never seen Spencer Lake.
Right. Yeah. No, it's interesting. So there's a lot of little hidden features about Burlingame.
There is.
The about the Canyon Club, right?
Is that the one? I don't. Is that by Millbrae or something?
No. Right off of Hillside Drive. So there used to, the old story is, from what I understand, is that a homeowner used to have a pool in his backyard, and then he decided he didn't want to deal with the pool anymore. But what do you do when you don't want to deal with the pool? You can fill it in or deal with that whole process. He had a more creative idea, and he wanted to give the pool to everybody in the surrounding little neighborhood whose parcels touched it. Right?
So they could use the pool?
So they could use the pool. And so it still stands today. It's a private pool that only about 10 homes over there in Burlingame have access.
So it's called the Canyon Club?
The Canyon Club. Little Canyon Club, yeah. And it's a hush-hush little secret thing, so maybe I shouldn't be talking about it on the podcast.
Same owner of the home, though? Or did it change hands and they just carried on the tradition?
Well, so the pool is kind of owned in like a collective association trust right now, so it's kind of everybody has a piece of it.
Pretty cool.
Right? And it's a bonus of living on Hillside there, because if you have one of those homes that touch that parcel, you get access to it.
Did you ever get to swim in it?
I never got to swim in it, but there were a few times that my friends and I would go looking over the fence and
take a look.
Yeah, take a look.
All right. So you never went to the Avenue. Did you go to Broadway at all or anything like that?
All the time when I was growing up. I was always on Broadway because my mom was a hairstylist on Cappuccino.
Oh, she was?
Yeah. So I was, from a very young age, I'd be in there sweeping up the hair, holding the door open for the ladies, giving them water and their candies and whatnot.
Yeah.
So.
Did you and your buddies ever go up and down Broadway or anything, or go to some of the?
No, not too much.
Okay.
Realistically, when we were younger, we also spent a lot of time during like high school hanging out at just other people's houses.
Yeah.
We had a lot of friends that were kind of in the South Bay or a little bit, further down the peninsula. Mm-hmm. And we also had created a few groups and little private Twitter accounts and Instagram accounts where we would send events to each other within it, and then we would all coordinate and go out to meet at Dave's house over there in like Los Altos and whatnot. But that was really where we would spend most of our time. There's not really a spot, or at least there wasn't then, that was kind of like the common hangout spot that everybody, relaxed at and met up at, like the drive-ins. Or I know Burlingame had a stint sometime where it was a real big bar town, and they had a lot of bars there.
You're absolutely right. Before the restaurants was the bars.
Right, yeah.
Lots of them, too.
And that's before me. So.
I know that, yeah. So I was just wondering then, while you were at Burlingame High School, did you participate in anything like the drama club or the football or any, sports, I guess, anything like that?
That's a good question. Initially when I was a freshman, I played baseball my whole life growing up, but then, tried out for the team and realized I was good for the little league level. But then once we got to the high school level and there was a couple other people that were, taking this more seriously.
Yeah.
I was washed.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to be able to.
So where did this great video career of yours start? Did you start tinkering with that in high school at all?
Yeah, right around that time. I mean, to be honest with you, it really started in middle school. Once I transitioned out of Catholic school to the public school, I made a bunch of friends that were loosely into creating videos.
Yeah.
And And so we had a YouTube channel called Last Honest Blog, and we used to, you know, create little videos where we'd make a chair that could combine 2 sodas through a tube, and you could sit in it and drink the sodas out of the tube.
How cool.
Right.
Just having fun stuff.
Yeah. Taking a desk chair down a hill, you know, that we found in a parking lot, right?
And just having fun.
Having fun. So I got a little bit of exposure to that then. And then as we were growing up, one of my best friends, Bryce Nelson, he was really into videography, photography, that whole work. So I just kind of naturally was behind him a lot of the time because, like you were talking about earlier, sometimes someone needs to hold the camera, right? Someone needs to be there.
Somebody has to be there.
Right. Yeah. So we did a lot of stuff, you know, just little projects, passion projects. And his end of it kind of grew where he was getting hired to do jobs for, you know, DJs and concerts and venues and models and whatnot that wanted to get photos or videos taken. So he was kind of more into that world, but I was just around him and kind of learned from him, you know, thankfully teaching me. I'd sit behind him when he's doing his video editing and whatnot, and it gave me a lot of transferable skills. I didn't realize it at that time.
Yeah, well, look what you've done now, and we're going to talk about that in a little while, of course.
Yeah, sure.
So when I grew up in Burlingame, we hung out a lot at Victoria Park, which is just a few blocks from where you grew up.
Right.
And where I lived on 409, but I also grew up on Bayswater. But anyway, that's where I hung out. Did you ever go to Victoria Park much or anything as a kid?
You know, not too much.
Okay.
Not too much. You know, to be honest, the real park that we would go to all the time was Washington Park, just because of how big it was, right?
Yeah, it had a lot more to offer.
Yeah, exactly. Had much more to offer.
Yeah, a lot going on. But they didn't have rec dances in your time.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, yeah. That was my first exposure to the rec center right there.
Really?
The All Cities. That's what they used to call them back in the day.
All Cities.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. That was pretty fun. I still remember the first time that
And that was still Friday night?
Yeah, it was sporadic. I want to say it was maybe for holidays, or it wasn't, you know, like every Friday night kind of thing. But it was, you know, maybe bi-monthly. Okay, let's call it. But I still remember the first time getting in the back of my parents' car and driving up and seeing everybody waiting in a line outside the rec center, going down Burlingame Ave, or down towards the 101. And it was just nerve-wracking that first time, you know, it was going in there, right?
I know, man.
That first dance. And then they used to have spray bottles. If you guys were dancing too close to each other, they'd
You're kidding.
Swear to God.
The chaperones would do that?
Yeah,
That's funny.
You get a little flashlights they hit you with, too.
That's funny. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember the nuns at St. Catherine's would come with a ruler. You know, 6 inches or 12 inches, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Funny stuff.
I had a couple of times where they'd slam on my desk because they see my hands were in there, and they were like, pay attention. And I'm like, oh, sorry.
All right. So what year did you graduate from Burlingame High School?
I graduated 2015. Yeah, 2015.
Okay, take me a little bit on that journey. What happened after graduation?
God, not much, man. I was just hanging out. I was the guy that was working at the Shoreline Lake Boathouse, down there where Shoreline Amphitheater is.
Yeah.
They actually have a lake right behind it. A lot of the tech companies out here use it for like corporate events. Yeah. But it's also one of those kind of like lesser known areas. And you can kayak there, paddleboard, go on a boat. I helped Mark Zuckerberg and his wife and his daughter into a boat one time there.
Really?
Yeah. It was super exciting.
But were you working down there or fooling around down there?
No, I was working down there. I was employed at
the
boat. Yeah. I was employed at the boathouse. I was also doing their summer camp for a little while.
Yeah.
But I stayed there for a couple months after it. And then I'd got a girlfriend at the time, previous girlfriend, and she had gone back to college in Arizona. And that's really what sparked it for me. And I was kind of like, oh man, I'm just the guy that's here at the boathouse. I got to do something with my life.
So is that when you decided to go to CSM, or were you going to CSM at that time?
That's when I really decided to go to CSM, and I started taking those classes for real estate and business because, growing up, a lot of people had always told me, God, you'd be great in real estate. You love to talk. You love to like sell things and whatnot, you know? So it's always been something that was like suggested in the back of my head. I initially was supposed to be a firefighter the whole way from birth. I mean, my uncle's a captain and was over there in Menlo Park.
Really?
Yeah. And he was sent out to a bunch of different big tragedies that would happen out here, like 9/11 and whatnot, to do the rapid intervention crew. But
wow.
I really changed pace after I graduated high school because I realized how many, close calls that he's had and other people have had in that field. And that was after I got licensed in basic firefighting for wildland and search and rescue.
And did you get that from CSM or what?
I got that through Post 955. They had like an explorers program, basically. So through CAL FIRE, they had a program for younger kids to kind of get involved in the system beforehand and get their toes wet. And I was super involved in that in high school, like towards the end of it. I want to say it was like my junior and most of my senior year. Like basically every weekend, one of those days in the morning, I'd be up at, you know where the juvenile hall is?
I do.
So they have a fire station that's right behind it. That's CAL FIRE's fire station. And I'd be there, you know, doing the trainings and whatnot in my light blue.
Soaking it up.
Soaking it up.
Being involved. Good for you. So did you do 2 years at CSM?
Technically, yes, I believe. But I never really finished a class at CSM.
Okay.
I only finished one class at CSM, and it was a real estate class.
Right.
And I realized, you know, halfway through that, I was just like, okay, I could be working under somebody here and getting the same experience, right? Mm-hmm. I'm in the shed that I built with my dad in the backyard over here on 401 with one of my buddies, and I'm looking through Indeed, which is a website that shows you, you know, where you can find jobs locally. And I come across this job that says real estate assistant, and it's down the street from me.
How old were you?
I was 18 or 19. Yeah, I want to say maybe 18. I want to say, yeah. And I'm talking to my buddy about it, and I'm telling him, you know, hey, look at this job listing and whatnot. And he's like, oh, hey, who's it listed by? And I'm like, this guy named Joe Polyak. And he's like, oh, it's my cousin. Right?
Small world.
Small world, yeah. And so I end up going to this interview, and I'm like the youngest guy in the room by like 15 years. It's kind of awkward. You know, there's a lot of things they're talking about I don't understand. And, you know, it's kind of, I'm just moving through the motions, right? And then when it comes to the end, the questions part, it gets a little silent. You know sometimes how that happens, right?
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like, any questions? And then it goes crickets.
Oh, yeah, crickets.
So it went crickets, and the crickets were lasting. So I started to, you know, throw them a couple softballs, basic questions, just to get the ball rolling. And then, you know, still not much. So cracked a joke at the end and basically said, hey, can I take the pizza that you brought? You know, with the leftovers that you got.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, if you stay to the end, you can have the leftovers. And I'm like, cool, thank you. And everybody laughed in the room. So it was a funny, lighthearted moment. It kind of broke the air a little bit. So, you know, they wrapped up, and when I'm waiting there to get my pizza, he says, meet me tomorrow, Shelter Creek. We're going to start working.
He bought your personality.
He did, yeah. So I really, you know, went under his wing and looked up to him as like a mentor for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Doing assistant work for him. And he was really focused on probate and trust sales at that time, which were, you know, sales where somebody passes away and they don't have a will, trust, anything set up. So there's family members that are just claiming that they were given a stake of this, or maybe there's like a napkin that they have somewhere.
Right.
Yeah. So they have to go to court to kind of figure that out. But all of those records are public. So he would send me to the courthouses in Berkeley, San Jose, and pull the records. And then we'd get the phone numbers and the records of people who had just passed away. And then we give them a call and say, hey, do you need help with this whole process? Because some of these people, they'd be family members in Washington, you know, out of state, right? And they've never been to the area. They don't want to go to the area. The house is in shambles, hoarder house, trash to the ceiling.
Wow.
Right? So they would rely on us to orchestrate the whole process of cleaning up the house, getting all the belongings put into a pod, ship it out to them, you know, into the other state. I mean, you know, family heirlooms, photo albums, awards, all that kind of stuff. And it was really the best start I could ask for in that business.
Yeah, it kind of gave you a starting block, right?
It gave me the raw look of it, because you know you could work under somebody over here in Hillsborough and do the $10 million homes, and they're an easy sale every time because it's beautiful luxury, you know.
Right.
Or you could start off with something that's super rough and you know, it kind of builds you up a little bit.
Yeah.
So he was a great teacher in the beginning. I mean, he had me doing all kinds of door knocking and cold calling that you know got me to feel a little bit more comfortable with myself and with talking to people and talking to people about something that's, you know, very hard to go through. I mean, this is someone's livelihood.
Right.
A lot of these houses are family houses that they've had for generations, you know. So it's an interesting little dance that you go through with them.
Okay. We will come back to real estate in a little while.
Sure.
Okay. So but after high school, so you did that, and you continued to do that, and then you got into your career, of course, right?
Yes.
Well, what I want to talk about is your uncanny interest in Burlingame history at your age. I think it's pretty remarkable. I mean, I didn't really care too much when I was your age about what was going on, but you have a lot. You've done a lot of research, and you put on a couple of great videos on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of how I found you. I kind of stumbled along that. And I'd like to talk about 3 key ones that I saw on YouTube, right, that you hosted, that you pretty much did on your own. Yeah. Like you said, nobody was holding the camera. You did the whole 9 yards. And so there's 3 of them. There was the Castaway Restaurant. Were you even born by them when the Castaway was here?
No, but
you weren't.
It was something that was always talked about by everybody that, was in my family, was older.
Right.
Used to love going there for the family events and whatnot. They're in Bella Vista. You remember over on...
Of course I do. We went there for a few New Year's Eves. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Great spot. Okay, so the Castaway I want to talk about. I want to talk about the drive-in theaters.
Right.
Were they around when you were in high school, or were they gone by then?
No, also totally gone.
Gone.
I believe that they got, finally torn down early 2000. Early 2000s.
But you never went there, right?
I mean,
which
I'm
3, 4
I did
years
old.
Quite a bit,
yeah,
all right?
Yeah.
And then the third one, we're both too young for this one, was the Pacific City out there by Coyote Point, right? So I want to talk about those 3, but we'll start with the Castaway.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about that. You did this wonderful video where you're standing on the hillside telling everybody this was the Castaway Restaurant, blah, blah, blah. When did the Castaway Restaurant start over there in Coyote Point area? What year was that?
That is a wonderful question. I am not 100% sure off the top of my head.
Give me a ballpark.
60s? Had to be the 60s or 70s,
yeah.
I want to say.
Okay, and then it went out of business when? Do you remember that?
I think it was at the 90s where he didn't want to extend his lease again, right? And then they had torn the place down, or had fallen to fire is what it was. It had a fire that had happened there.
Right.
But yeah, that video and all of these videos are just stemmed off of a bone I have to pick with Burlingame and the peninsula as a whole.
Yeah.
I got a little problem.
Would that have come under Burlingame's jurisdiction, though, or San Mateo?
That was actually San Mateo's.
Point,
yeah, so Coyote Point, right? So I would say the peninsula as a whole. I feel like there used to be so many things that we were able, or your generation and maybe the generations prior to, let's say, the 90s were able to do, and leisure things, right?
Right.
And now there's such a lack for it, you know? I think, I don't want to thank God, but maybe, we got that Topgolf here now because it's finally something fun for, the family to do, something new out here, right?
Should be a big deal.
It is, yeah. I just visited yesterday, and that place is incredible. It's one of the biggest ones that they have.
Is it? And was it doing business?
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, they were packed.
Good.
It was to the brim.
Okay.
But I really like, looking into these monuments almost in a sense that used to be here, that brought people here.
Yeah.
I mean, even with Pacific City, right? They had Harry Houdini do a couple of his sets
hang on.
there.
We're going to get to that in a minute. All right. Did your parents go to the Castaways? Did they ever talk about that?
Yeah, they definitely did. That was one of the spots that my family was always going to for holidays.
A lot of folks remember it that are listening to this, but a lot of people that are new to Burlingame don't know anything about it.
Right.
There was this gorgeous tiki type of restaurant that would sit in the hills over there of Coyote Point looking out at the bay. It was fantastic.
It was beautiful.
Yeah,
allegedly.
they did a great job. Good food, good drinks,
and the menu,
et cetera.
The pictures that I see of the menu, the food looked super cheap.
Yeah, compared to today, it sure is. That's for sure. So it was do you know it was just one owner the whole time?
Yeah, it was one owner the whole time. And like you're saying, beautiful panoramic views of the whole Bay Area.
Right.
And that tiki theme was super, super common out here back in the day,
It was terrific. Yeah, because the Lanai down in San Mateo.
Right.
That was a very popular place to go to. But there was a lease problem, then it burned down or something, or what?
Yeah, essentially it burnt down at the end.
You think it was an insurance deal?
Mark? You never know, right?
Okay.
Because that's a common theme in the Bay Area. A lot of these huge, big historical estates that could be great use for public services or more houses, right? Back then, just mysteriously caught in flames one night, right? Darius Ogden's estate over there in Millbrae.
That's right.
went up in flames, you know?
Beautiful estate.
Yeah, there's, historic stuff in San Jose, same story.
If somebody's walking the trail over there at Coyote Point today or tomorrow, is there anything left that they can see of the Castaway?
No.
It's all gone.
As far as the Castaway goes, I mean, you're only going to see the paint markers for the parking spots and the curbs. Yeah.
Wow.
That's it.
Okay. Okay, let's move to the drive-ins then.
The drive-ins.
Yeah.
There's a plaque.
Yes, we just the Historical Society just put that plaque in earlier this year.
I love that.
As a commemorative, of course. So for people that are new to Burlingame, where were the drive-ins and what's there now?
So the drive-ins were right off of, is that Bayshore right there, driveway? Right, yeah. And so it was initially one or two, I think it was two movie theaters or two drive-ins. One was a little bit larger than the other. And then they expanded and kind of mirrored it and whatnot out there. Now it's called Burlingame Point, right? And it's right across the water from Coyote Point, which we're just talking about.
It's looking at the Castaway.
Exactly.
And if you're at the Castaway, you're looking at the drive-ins.
Boom, right? You can see it one-to-one.
Right.
Beautiful.
So there was two big drive-ins. Do you know the year that came in by any chance?
That I want to say was around the same. I think that was 1970s as well.
I think it was earlier in the 60s.
You want to say 60s? Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I think the original one that they built was in the 60s, and then when they expanded on later on.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it went to 2 max, right? There was never 4 or 3, was there?
I believe, at some point had 4 screens.
I thought so.
Yeah. I've seen a picture of an aerial shot that they had there.
What's there today for people that want a real landmark?
Well, so now it's Meta, formerly known as Facebook.
Facebook, right?
And actually, the only Meta store in the world is right there.
Yeah, you talked about that on your video. That's the place where you can go in and, purchase products, right?
Yeah, and they've got some really cool products there. They've got the Ray-Ban glasses that have the hidden lens in there that you can take videos with, and the quality's super nice. And they've got a bunch of different, AR and VR headsets and all kinds of games that you can test out there.
Yeah. Can you buy computers in there too, and iPads and all that, or is it just mostly the space age stuff?
Well, so that's the interesting thing. It's not an Apple store.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. You're right.
I
went off the
No, because you know what they're doing here is they're trying to replicate. They're trying to do a little bit of replicating and duplicating of the Apple store, right? Yep. You go in there and you're like looking for an iPhone. It kind of feels like it's got the same ambiance, really has the same feel to it. But
it's open to the public.
Open to the public, so anybody can go in there and test out the fun little games that they have. If you've got maybe kids and you want to spend a day, doing something fun, go out on a little picnic walk, or spend some time over there.
Right,
could be a good way to spend the night or a day.
So that video that you shot over there is about 7 or 8 minutes, something like that.
Just about.
How long did that take to actually do?
I mean, I woke up 2 days before. And this is how my video process works.
Right.
I just wake up and I feel motivated some days, and I'm like, I should do this. And I've got a big list. I've got I've got a whiteboard and an Excel sheet and an actual physical list of just different ideas. And so I just pull one off of the list, and then I'm like, let's go do this one.
And you're using your iPhone?
Yeah, set up the iPhone on a tripod, and then I have that little microphone that I bought off of Amazon.
Right.
I got the I think it's the iPhone 10 Plus. So I have the access to do 4K and 60 frames per second.
Okay, you just lost me. So, all right. Can I bring up a fun fact?
Sure.
Okay. And it's about drive-in theaters. All right.
Yeah.
So Peninsula Avenue.
Yeah.
And Studio Circle, there's a Shell station.
Right.
That sits on the corner there.
Right.
It's called Studio Circle for a reason.
Right.
Back in the 20s, there was Pacific Studios. There was silent movies were created there. And from what my dentist tells me, who has an office there, that Charlie Chaplin used to do silent films.
Right.
Okay?
And you go up that neighborhood a little bit too, and there's the silent movie neighborhood where they had the actors there.
That's right.
All those Mediterraneans.
That's right. And then the other thing is there was a drive-in theater there as well.
Right.
Before, after the studios left and all that, there was a drive-in theater right there behind the Shell station for the longest time. You didn't know that, did you?
I didn't know that, and and that's one of those things.
That's why it's a fun fact, okay?
That's a fun fact, right?
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about Pacific Studios, which really intrigues me. Your video was very good, and so was Russ Cohen's. The current vice president of the Historical Society, did a wonderful one on YouTube, right? For the Historical Society.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen it?
I have. I've flipped through it a little bit, to get inspiration, and I loved when you did that. It was beautiful.
It's hard for me to believe that there was like a Coney Island West right up where the overpass, man.
Right.
And there was a boardwalk and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And it was really popular. I guess it opened on July 3rd of, I forget the year, 1921 or 22, maybe later than that, but
essentially, yeah, right around there, early 1900s.
Amazing, and it drew big crowds. And on the 4th of July, I got a humongous crowd. But it only hung for 2 years, right?
It was only a handful of years that they were there, yeah, because they had just built all of the homes in Lion Hogue, where we live.
Right.
But the sewage runoff was going straight into the bay there.
Right.
So the smell was just not
horrible.
Yeah.
Correct. And the swimming had to be no swimming.
Right.
So it was done and over with in a couple of years.
Yeah.
So if you walk over to Coyote Point now, don't they have? Can you see a couple of little posts sitting out in the water or something like that? It's kind of the remnants of the boardwalk.
Yeah, and that's about it. That's one of the only things that's left there.
There's a little plaque as well.
The plaque, right? Yeah, they got the plaque, but
Right.
those little piers are the last.
That's it. Those posts coming up from the water.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Pretty cool stuff, man. All right.
It's pretty sweet.
It is. Yeah, Pacific City. I bet you there's a lot of folks in Burlingame or even San Mateo that never even realized it was there, huh?
Yeah, no, I can't imagine that they would unless they've been on a walk over there.
Right, and now it's just a great memory. And like I said, you can look at your video on YouTube and or Russ Cohen's with the Burlingame Historical Society.
Right.
So,
yeah.
all right, let's talk about your profession
Sure.
without advertising your profession. Okay?
Absolutely.
Right. Real estate. How long have you been in the industry now?
Well, so I started as an assistant in 2018, and then I got licensed in 2020.
Was the license online, or did you have to go to classes, or what?
The classes were online. The test was in person. So I took the test in Oakland, got my license, 2020. I want to say it was August 2020.
Brutal. I mean, that had to be a very difficult time to get. It was a pandemic. Everything was closed down, right?
Right. And so, what the thing was is, I'd been kind of on the path of getting my license and deciding whether or not I should do it. And unexpectedly, my grandma, my abuelita on my dad's side, she had passed away. And now her only two kids were my dad and my uncle. And they were like, we're going to sell the house.
Right.
If you're going to get into real estate, we want you to sell it.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, now I got to get my license, right? So I go start the process of getting my license. We start the process of fixing up our house. Global pandemic happens.
Amazing. Yeah. So what happened? Did the home eventually sell then?
Oh, yeah. And we sold for over list price because
Yeah.
of the way everything panned out.
But did you have to wait for pandemic to get over before that happened, or did it sell in 2021? Or do you remember when it sold?
Yeah, no, it sold in 2020. It sold,
Yeah.
I think it was like 2 months right after I'd got like fully licensed.
Great.
And we had been doing work for, the better part of a year to
Yeah.
get that thing ready because it was really, really old and original. You got my abuelito taping up pipes and, putting glue on everything to
love
just
it.
make it work, right?
Yeah.
So we had to do a lot of fixing and replacing to make sure that we're giving something good to the next person.
Yeah.
Because when we're selling a house out here, we got to have disclosures, got to have the inspections done.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So that once because we had to put everything on pause for the work that we were doing once COVID happened. Full work stopped for I want to say it was like a week or so. But then once we got the clearance to go ahead, we were full gung ho. The Fed had dropped the interest rate a bunch. It was low 2%.
Right. It almost went to nothing, huh?
Right. And so people were really motivated to get into the market and buy something.
Right.
And even if that meant, getting a second property because or refinancing the one that they have right now, right? So we, listed it almost immediately after it was ready, sold it over list price. Everything was really happy and smooth.
Yeah.
And then I still visit the street over there because it is my grandma's street. So we know a bunch of the neighbors.
Absolutely.
And, I give them little goodies every so often.
I think it might be fair right now to tell the listeners a little bit how you and I met.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were out doing your due diligence, out doing your work, walking the streets, hanging the doorknob holders or, the things that go on the doorknob and the paper and all that stuff. And you said to me, hey, would you be interested in selling your home? Well, who are you? I'm Joseph Suarez, right? I go, oh, okay. Yeah, I said, sure, I'm willing to sell the home. I want $4 million in cash. And you lit up and you said, okay, I'll be back sometime. Well, Joe, I'm still waiting. All right. All right.
I do remember that exchange. That was hilarious.
That was funny how we met. Okay.
It was a good time.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, when I was starting with Joe, he really leaned into getting out there face to face and talking to people. Right. That's the best way to learn how to,
It
interact.
is.
So I have been consistently door knocking my neighborhood for like the past 4 years now.
That's terrific.
Yeah, no, it's pretty fun because I've got a lot of good friends now like you and a couple other people
Right.
on some of the neighboring streets here that
Yeah.
I wouldn't have met without door knocking them or just dropping off the little flyer. What I like to do now, and it's progressed over the years, is I leave the flyer or I knock on the door, I market update. You want one? And then it's kind of like a yes or no kind of thing, right?
Right.
Because I never want to be that the salesman that's coming up to your door and are you ready to sell or not? Yeah.
Well, I'm waiting, Joe. Anyway, during this time of the year, winter time, dark, rainy, holidays, does business slow down?
Yeah, it does. And, it's one thing that people don't really pay attention to, I think, or don't want to acknowledge. A lot of the buyers in the market and a lot of people who own property and need to sell, they're not really necessarily thinking about selling unless they absolutely have to during this time because it's the holidays.
Right.
I mean, we're spending time with the family. We're going on vacations, you're visiting people.
You kind of want that sunshine hitting the house and the lawn and the flowers blooming and all that good stuff,
and
right?
that's the best time right there, right in the summer.
Yeah. How are interest rates today?
They're all right. They've been worse before, but they're floating around a mid 6.
Yeah.
So a lot of people like to say, date the rate, marry the house. I don't believe in that. I don't think that's a right way to think about it.
Date the rate,
yeah,
marry the house.
Right. Where it's like,
what does that mean?
Well, some people like to say that the rate is temporary and it's always going to go down or eventually it'll go down and you can refinance when that happens.
Yeah.
But get locked into the house that you love,
Right.
because that's, something that's not going to change. You got to love the location and everything else about it. So I will say there's some credence to that. If it is a place that, you're absolutely in love with, you should pull the trigger on it, and if it's something that you're able to do right now because the stars line up, financially it makes sense. It's something sound and safe for your household to partake in, then go ahead. But if you're just doing it to do it, you're just trying to get another piece of property in the same neighborhood that you have, and it's kind of like, you'd be pushing it a little bit. It may not be the smartest investment to bite a 6.5% interest rate right now.
Yeah.
Because,
Well, let me ask you something, and I don't want to put you on the spot. Would you recommend an adjustable over a fixed, or how do you feel about it?
Adjustables are great. Yeah. An ARM is good, You could get a little bit of a lower rate right now and save yourself.
They put a cap on them, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, realistically, there's a lot of programs that you can get from a lender that are kind of tailored for your situation, depending on your situation, right? And depending on the lender you use, they could, kind of help you navigate your assets in a way that you can, be able to afford more without, necessarily doing much or fixing up your credit, right?
Yeah.
And being able to borrow more because you fixed up your credit, right?
Okay.
So it varies for every person, I will say, because there's, some programs like the Dream for All program where there's a huge laundry list of requirements that you have to meet. But if you meet them, state pays your down payment.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. And you pay them back a portion of the sales price when you sell.
No kidding. Pretty cool. This is the state of California, then.
Yeah. I mean, we've really hit a magnum opus when it comes to the housing situation over here. Not a lot of houses, ton of people that want to move in here.
Right. Like that was actually going to be my next question is how are the inventory levels in Burlingame, and San Mateo County right now?
Right now, as we speak, insanely low. This is the lowest they'll ever be all year.
Yeah.
And this kind of goes for, most years, right? Once we step into that December time, the only reason somebody really has their house on the market is because they have to sell,
right?
Or because, they're just rolling the dice, right? And they just like to see. It's not the wisest thing to have your home listed with a bunch of days on market because as a buyer and as a buyer's agent, I'm telling my clients, hey, nobody's came to their party. No one's wrote them an offer. No one's ready to buy this.
What's the average length of time that a home in Burlingame, San Mateo, blah, blah, stays on the market?
Not long. Very quick, these ones go.
Under 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Oh, yeah. Under 2 weeks. I mean, right now, because we're in the slower time, this is when it would take a little bit longer. But generally, average time, about a week, 2 weeks, If you're doing it right, it's a week, right? And the timeline is this.
Wow.
You go to market on, Thursday. You post the open house. You have a great open house. You invite everybody in the neighborhood. You cast a wide net. You want to get as most pre-qualified eyes and as eyes as possible on your listing, right? And then you set an offer date, on Tuesday, right? Basically, that Tuesday you say, hey, we're going to set offers for Wednesday or Thursday, right? You accept offers on Wednesday or Thursday, and then your house is sold. You got to give people a target to hit, right? You can't just, let them go willy-nilly and don't set a target for offers. I think that's huge for people. Sometimes they need the deadline.
Okay. Tomorrow is Tuesday, which is Christmas Eve.
It is.
No broker tours tomorrow, right?
No broker tours tomorrow. No.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you typically go on the tours?
If it's a special home and if it's something that either my client's interested in, it's a home that I know about and I've looked into, or they've done a really good job with it, it has to stick out to me. Or if it's listed by somebody that, I'm good friends with and I want to go out there to support them and see how they're doing and pick their brain and whatnot, then yeah. But generally, they have to give me a reason, Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do you ever watch any of those reality real estate shows on Bravo TV, like $1 Million Listing and, Selling Sunset? Do you ever watch those things?
Love them.
You do?
Absolutely love them.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I love hearing that. Okay, so...
I think they're hilarious.
Okay, they're hilarious, but how close to reality are they?
Well, not at all. That's the point. And I think that a lot of people watch them from the perspective of, this is how it is? This is really how it is? You guys don't do anything.
Right.
I watch it from the perspective of, oh my God, this is how they think it is. This is crazy. This is insane. Yeah. No, I'd say maybe 10 to 15% of what they're showing in the show actually happens in real time. There's a lot more contract work. There's a lot more back and forth with negotiations. Sometimes there's a title problem. There's stuff that comes up in the inspections, all kinds of things like that they're not showing. But
these
fun.
Guys are for real estate guys, because when I'm in Los Angeles, I see their billboard signs, right?
Oh yeah, they're serious.
Josh so-and-so and this guy and that guy.
Josh Altman,
the Oppenheimer group.
Right.
But anyway, I'm always blown away by it. So let me ask you something. If Bravo TV came up with a show up here to the Bay Area and they called it the Young Titans of Real Estate of the Bay Area, right? Yeah. And they offered you an opportunity to participate, would you do it?
1,000%. Call me. Call me on that, guys.
All right. Okay. So we're getting ready to wrap this up. But so I mentioned your videos are on YouTube. So if somebody wants to find your videos on YouTube, why don't you tell everybody where they're going to find it?
To be honest with you, the easiest way to do it is just type in the search bar, Joseph Suarez Real Estate Bay Area.
Can you spell that last name for my listeners? Our listeners?
S like Sam, U-A-R-E-Z.
Right, Joseph Suarez.
Suarez.
And it comes up, right? How many are on there?
I've got a handful right now.
Yeah.
I think we're under or right around 10, I'd say.
Yeah.
But I really want to be specific and careful about the content that I put out, because I want it to be nice. I want it to be something that you can enjoy, I can enjoy. Somebody that's just is thinking about moving into Burlingame or the area can enjoy.
Right.
Right.
Well, they've been good, and keep up the good work. But before we close, any shout outs to family, friends, colleagues, etc.?
Well, of course, I'd have to give a shout out to my wonderful parents, my mother and father, Jim and Jackie Suarez.
Right.
My wonderful girlfriend, Yulia Strashkina, and my two best friends, Liam and Reeve. They're some of my two best buddies that I've made at middle school,
That's
over
great.
here in BIS.
Great.
Still friends with them to this day. We always do New Year's.
Awesome.
Those are the guys.
So when you say you're going to do New Year's, what does that mean? What are you doing?
Well, so for maybe like a decade now almost, we've always spent New Year's together. So we'll go to one of each other's houses, or we'll do dinner in the city, or, we used to go to Mexico and go to Cabo every so often.
That's good.
We used to do that, once a year, and it would be our little get together, because these guys are, one's, he just got his law license, Liam, in Minnesota.
Wonderful.
And then my buddy Reeve, he kind of comes back and forth from here in Colorado for his work, and it's very rare where I get to see him, so it's nice that we have that one time to get together.
Great. Joey, Merry Christmas, and thanks for being on the show today.
Happy holidays. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you.